Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Those crazy devs at CIG are adding an extraction shooter set of gameplay to Star Citizen. So let's talk about that because it's potentially going to be pretty popular. Let's also talk about asteroid bases, pyro stations, general gameplay area that we're getting in Alpha 4.0 a little bit as well. So let's start with the media stuff, the extraction shooter stuff, because I think a lot of people will be like, what do you mean extraction shooter? So in Star Citizen Alpha 4.0, the next major patch to be released, they are adding contested zones, which CIG is saying are similar to an MMO dungeon. But in reality, it is much more similar to an extraction shooter. So it's these are more open areas. The spaces will always exist for you to go into any time and do this sort of extraction shooter contested zone gameplay. It's not a dynamic event, is what I'm telling you. They're in the pyro system, and obviously as they open up more star systems and more areas, you'll probably see these turn up more and more in different places, and they're clearly influenced by extraction shooters. So you get more rewards effectively the longer you are in there. So there's enemies to fight, there are paths to explore. You're in a pyro station, so you're in a space station, and you can leave the social area, the green zone, and go through a door or an elevator or whatever, and then be in one of these contested zones, which there are enemies at. There's a lot to explore, a load of loot to find, there's doors to go through, and I really like this idea because, yeah, you're right next to the area, you can do it all on foot. You can set your spawn at a station and then just run off and go in, explore, fight, loot. And these areas on stations are going to be in massive disrepair, typically with no power, minimal or no life support, sometimes no gravity, stuff like that. And lots of dangers. There's booby traps, dangerous creatures, just copians at the moment, those wolves, but there's going to be more in the future. There's a load of NPCs there, there's potentially loads of players there. You basically need to keep progressing through doors that lead you to more combat, more loot, more things to find. You'll need to make choices where to go as well. There are going to be key cards, puzzles, traps, other players. There's timers on some of these doors. So this is very much a PvPvE situation. So both PvP and PvE at varying scales based on where you are and what you're doing and how far you want to go in. And you'll be able to do this combat and this stuff solo or with the group. Not sure the sort of size, the maximum size of group that you can go in with. But yeah, it is at scale for sure. You fight your way in, get loot, get out. The enemies there aren't spawned by missions either. They respawn over time. As I said earlier, it's not a mission. It's just a persistent zone where I suppose loot respawns and doors reset and the enemies there respawn. They also want to have boss fights and bosses there, and they did talk about tying some missions in there in the future. They talked about some of these doors having timers, so you might want to hold an area for as long as possible to get all the doors open, to get even more loot. And I'm a little bit confused at, are some doors on timers, some doors you need to explore and find a key? Is it a mixture of the two? Something else to mention here is obviously these are PvP areas, and I'm a little concerned that there will be no restrictions to entry and who can come in and when they can come in, and you'll just have players waiting by the exits that aren't doing any of the gameplay other than just hiding in a little area and alpha striking their target. Now, obviously, once you have scanning and lots of other stuff going on, it might not be such a problem, but it's certainly going to be a problem at the start, in my opinion. I suppose the reason Star Citizen is an alpha is because they can look at these problems and see how they actually manifest and then work out systems around them. The social zones on stations are going to be green zones. They're going to be safe. So once you get out of those contested areas, you will be safe to bank your loot. Having an easily accessible extraction shooter as part of Pyro, as part of Star Citizen, is pretty cool. And I think it's one of the reasons I really like Star Citizen, because they can have loads of these gameplay loops like this that they add in, and then they provide a new part of the economy, a new part of the way that everything else ties in together, because they can have these potentially having a particular loot that is easier to get through this, or that you can only get through this sort of means, which then helps provide an economy because people can then sell those goods. And it's just a lot of interesting gameplay. Loads of people love extraction shooters. Some people hate them. And if you don't like them, you don't have to do it. But Pyro is like a load of little microcosms of this sort of PvP and PvPvE gameplay. It is dangerous, but it's interesting because of that, and it will suit a load of players that want to do that kind of gameplay and actually get them out of other areas where they're unable to do that gameplay in the way that they want, which allows other players in like the standard system or systems that are potentially safer to go around and do mining and that sort of stuff, because they are going to be lower risk there. They might be lower reward, but I like the way that on paper this looks. Now, there's other stuff that's going on here as well, because things like this, does it extend out the sort of development time for the game? Potentially, but I suppose they are already adding this in for 4.0, at least that's the plan. And they also talked about things like asteroid bases. Now, these really should be called asteroid stations because they're not player bases or anything like that, not at this stage anyway. Basically, there are a number of asteroid clusters in Pyro that are using some new sort of asteroid tech. They are pretty good looking. Asteroid bases will make use of procedural asteroids there, and then they sort of carve bases into them, so they're quite big. They use these station pieces, these interior pieces that they already have, combine the two, you've got some interesting gameplay area, kind of like a mini Grimhex. They provide a load of additional mission types because they can have combined arms, fights in space, and then you go onto a station for FPS and for missions. Again, animals and gangs can be in these stations. There are a load of options and routes into these bases as well. They can have some pretty awesome combined arms gameplay here, and that's the sort of stuff that I actually quite like to see. They also talked about some cool, unique loot being in these stations, but they weren't ready to tell us what that was. Something else they did mention in the Inside Star Citizen was that there are 12 stations in the 4.0 release of Pyro they've got planned. One of them's that jump point station, but the stations are much larger than they are in Stanton, but obviously they come in varying levels of damage and disrepair. They're taken over by gangs, and there are various brands that you might see, or station names that you might see: Starlight Service Station, Obituary, Gaslight, Mugumi Refueling, Checkmate Station, Ruin Station. Ruin Station is the big main station in Pyro. Tons of gameplay opportunity there. More generally, stations in Pyro have the same facilities as stations that they're in the Stanton system, but it might be more expensive. It might be a bit different. Obviously, it feels a lot more oppressive. It's going to be a different economy for sure. I'm not sure if we're getting Ruin Station in the initial release of 4.0, but we might well have to wait and see. They did say some other bits and bobs as well. You can access external freight elevators from your hangar, so you can go out and load a large ship like a Hull C. But yeah, external access from your hangar to be able to get out and go to the loading areas there, or access larger ships. I think it's actually pretty cool. Ruin has the Ghost Arena, but CIG didn't really give us more information other than we need to go there and see it. Maybe it's, well, this is actually just one of the places that we have those contested areas, but it might be something else. They did also say the Rough and Ready gang is one of the factions and station operators in Pyro. They basically own the stations around there they sort of specialised in. And they're not going to own all the stations, and obviously there's going to be gang warfare effectively going on, but they aren't crazy hooligans either. They try and run a business, and they don't want to get dragged into unnecessary fighting. Rough and Ready is sort of a perversion of the R&R Rest and Relax stations. But yeah, that's your update on some of the content that we're getting in Alpha 4.0. Very excited to see those contested zones, because I do think that if they're done well, and they are interesting, and they are fun, and the loot is good, that people will love that. People love a good extraction shooter. I mean, not everyone. Obviously, some people hate extraction shooters. But the option is there, and it's easily accessible, and it scratches the itch for a lot of those PvPers and a lot of those explorers and a lot of the people that want high-risk situations with high reward. And CIG want to put something like this in that is easy to deploy in other areas and is effectively infinitely replayable. We don't have a release date on 4.0. We're hoping it's coming around October time with CitizenCon. We're hoping, at the very least, it's by the end of the year, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm really interested to know what you think of contested zones. Are you excited for asteroid bases? Are you excited for Pyro in general and 4.0? Whatever your thoughts or questions, please chuck them in the comments below. Also, the Tobii Eye Tracker, that's on sale until August 5th. Click the links below to get a discount on that if you want some very high precision eye and head tracking that is natively supported in Star Citizen. Thanks for watching, and now a word from our sponsor. I say sponsor, affiliate. You stand at the pearly gates. The winged being there weighs your sins against the weight of a feather. You are found wanting. Not a problem for nordvpn.com/BoredGamer though. Just change your location. Boom! You're in. Bypass your sin. Get nordvpn.com/BoredGamer. Probably not a tagline that Nord wants, bypass your sin, but that's what they're getting. Maybe they want one about its added security, privacy, or accessibility. Pah, everyone knows that. You get that at a touch of a button. Click these links below to get great deals on that VPN service. Every month we give away a ship, and this month of August is all about your favourite ships, because it's the ship showdown. My favourite ship is the Mercury Starrunner, and I don't want to give one of those away, but I will. It's a fantastic little multi-role, multi-crew ship. It's got a bit of cargo space, it's got room for a little vehicle, it's got a good amount of firepower, perfect little mission runner. In the future it's going to have data running, it's good for smuggling, it's got lots of secret little hidey holes. I absolutely love this ship. All you need to do to be in for a chance of winning that is comment on any of my videos made during August. Also, I would love to know what your favourite ship is. If you would like to further support the channel, consider just commenting or liking, subscribing. That all helps. But also there's the join button under my videos. That goes a huge way to allow us to make daily content on Star Citizen. There's also Patreon, sharing the videos, direct donations. There's links to all of that down below. Thank you so much for watching to the end. You take care and have a great day.